on to public hearing. Item 11. Mr. City Attorney.
Item number 11 on here is consideration of adoption of resolution 21-91. Sorry. Consideration of adoption of resolution number 21-91, approving case number Planning Commission PC 2021-0002-PD-SPR-PMP, an amendment to the precise plan of development for Plan Development District number 2-15 to allow a mixed-use affordable housing project at 112 through 132 South 6th Street and 150 through 525 East Whittier Boulevard. And we have staff presentation if the council wishes, and I think, Joe, you're going to pick up the staff presentation, right?
Thank you. Could I get the presentation up on the screen? Thank you, thank you. Good evening, Honorable Mayor, members of the City Council. Joseph Palumbi, Director of the City's Community and Planning and Development Department. Item 11 on tonight's agenda relates to a request from the Cesar Chavez Foundation to allow a phased mixed-use residential commercial development project in the downtown area. This project would be developed in 2 phases. Next slide, please. The project site highlighted here is comprised of 11 parcels totaling approximately 1.5 acres. The property is currently zoned C2 commercial and R3 multifamily residential, with a planned development overlay that was approved in 2016 for a 6-story, 130-room hotel, 45 market rate residential dwelling units, and approximately 8,500 square feet of commercial retail space. This request from the Cesar Chavez Foundation would amend the previously approved plan development overlay to include a phased mixed-use project to be developed in 2 phases with an overall density of 85 dwelling units per acre. Surrounding zoning in the area includes C2 and R3, which is consistent and compatible with the proposed project. Next slide, please. As shown here, Phase 1 will be developed on the property located at 112 through 132 South 6th Street and would include 63 affordable housing units with 1 unit reserved for an on-site manager that may be affordable or market rate. These units will be reserved for families and victims of domestic violence, as well as veterans. Phase 2 would be located at 501 through 525 East Whittier and would include 69 residential dwelling units with a mix of market rate and affordable units. In addition, Phase 2 would include approximately 10,100 square feet of commercial retail space that could be used for eating establishments and/or commercial retail uses. At full build-out, the project would include 132 dwelling units with a subterranean parking structure to accommodate 152 parking spaces. Construction for Phase 1 is anticipated to begin in December of 2022, followed by Phase 2, which is anticipated to commence in December of 2024. Based on the analysis, the proposed project will not cause substantial new or significant physical changes to the environment when compared to the previously approved project from 2016. This project complements the surrounding area consisting of commercial uses to the north, east, and west, and multifamily residential to the south. The project also provides quality housing units that will help the city meet its 6-cycle regional housing needs allocation. Next slide, please. So the next few slides are intended to provide an overview of the renderings and elevations that are also included in the development plans that are attached to the staff report before you tonight.
Mr. Palumbi, just for the residents and the audience, can you elaborate a little bit on the RENA numbers and why we have them and why the community is going to be seeing projects like this more often?
So the State Housing Community Development Department has established what they call regional housing needs assessment cycles. We are currently in the 6th cycle. They just began in October of 2021. And it runs for 8 years. And what that means is that through SCAG, they come up with these methodologies based on population that and through this formula, they create a number for each city. Within the next 8 years, the state is requiring us to accommodate up to approximately 5,200 new units. Not saying we have to build them, but we have to accommodate for them in the zoning. And if the cities don't comply, including Montebello, we would be subject to penalties such as we would be unable to apply for grants and things like that.
So for a city such as ours, in the limited space, we're a built-out city, we're having to find strategic places to build housing that is dense, tight, in neighborhoods where in the past weren't available, but we're having to do that because of the state mandate. And I just want to say, in addition to that, SB 9 and SB 10 that the state just approved last month also allows single-family residential units that had one house, now they can build 4 houses without the city even blinking an eye. So the state has made a push to push cities to build housing. And I know as a resident myself, it's difficult to comprehend and understand.
Yeah.
But those are state mandates. These are mandates that come from the state of California by elected officials that represent us. And a lot of times the city's hands are tied when it comes to these types of mandates.
Correct. Thank you, Mr. City Manager. Later in my presentation, I'll talk a little bit about state density bonus law, and we actually received a letter today that was distributed that you all have, and I'll speak on that. So thank you. So let me see here. So next slide, please. Thank you. So this slide is intended to show the east and west facing elevations. Next slide. This slide contains the north and south facing elevations. Next slide, please. So here's a rendering looking northeast from 6th Street. As previously mentioned, the Cesar Chavez Foundation seeks approval to build 132 residential dwelling units in 2 phases with a mix of 1, 2, and 3 bedroom units. And just to respond to a question, I think from one of the members of the public, we do have a breakdown in the proposed plan. There would be 27 one-bedroom units. There would be 16 two-bedroom units and 23 bedroom units. So that's the mix of units that are being proposed for phase 1. So as shown here, the building for phase 1 would be 3 to 4 stories with a maximum height of approximately 53 feet. The architectural style for phase 1 includes a contemporary design that features a neutral color palette, large windows with decorative trim, architectural projections both vertically and horizontally, and a colorful mural on the building's exterior, which makes reference to the legacy of civil rights leader Cesar Chavez. Staff has worked closely with the Cesar Chavez Foundation to get to this point. Please note that the design for phase 2 will be introduced under a separate request for site plan review, subject to consideration from the Planning Commission. Next slide, please. So this slide is intended to provide background regarding the project. On October 19th, the Planning Commission approved the site plan review and a parking management plan for phase 1. During its action, the Planning Commission also recommended approval of the amendment to the precise plan development for Plan Development District number 2-15, which is before you tonight for consideration. The Cesar Chavez Foundation is requesting certain concessions and waivers from the city's development standards, parking requirements, and density allowances based on current state law. So I'll kind of get into what I alluded to earlier. Under state density bonus law, specifically California Government Code Section 65915, the city is required to offer incentives for developers to build affordable housing units. These incentives include waivers from the city's development standards, reductions in required parking, higher densities, and increased height from what is allowed in the Montebello Municipal Code. With regard to parking for phase 1, the applicant has agreed to provide 66 parking spaces, including 11 tandem stalls. While this is deficient based on the city's code requirements, this proposal exceeds the number of parking spaces that would be required under state law. State law would require 32 parking spaces. Next slide. This slide provides an overview regarding the environmental analysis related to the project. On June 22nd of 2016, a mitigated negative declaration was approved by the City Council pursuant to the California Environmental Quality Act, or CEQA. Based on the initial study that was prepared, the findings concluded that the project would not have a significant effect on the environment. Pursuant to the CEQA guidelines, specifically Section 15162B, an addendum to the adopted mitigated negative declaration was prepared and is attached to the report before you tonight. This addendum concludes that approving the project would not result in any new or increased significant effects to the environment. Next slide. Next slide, please. In conclusion, the project site is located in the downtown corridor and provides an opportunity to further the city's vision to activate downtown Montebello with a healthy mix of housing units coupled with commercial retail uses. Also, the currently vacant, underutilized city-owned properties would be developed with affordable housing units, resulting in the conversion of tax-exempt parcels into tax-producing parcels. Staff's recommendation is consistent with the Planning Commission action, which calls for approval of the project as proposed. This concludes my report. The applicant is present, and staff is available to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.